Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a variant of the Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that represents fairly early production. This is the 5711/1A-001. 40 millimeters in stainless steel. The timepiece is representative of the watch that debuted on the 30th anniversary of the Nautilus back in 2006. It's 8.5 millimeters thick, and from lug to lug, 44.5 millimeters. If you include these end links, which do project out a little bit, the total distance across the wrist is still very manageable, 48.5 millimeter. Throwing the watch on the wrist, it is very comfortable. It is silky. The bracelet is extremely thin. The watch is low cut, broad, flat, spreads its mass nicely. It is a very comfortable timepiece to wear. The integration of the bracelet, as designer Gerald Genta intended, is more like an article of jewelry than a conventional watch, and the watch is finished to that standard. You can also see it is very easy to accommodate on a small wrist and to slide underneath a tight cuff. I think even if your wrist is 13.5 centimeters circumference, you're going to be finding that this watch wears quite well. Compared to, for example, the annual calendar, the 5726, this is a much more compact watch. That one almost feels like a Nautilus offshore, if that comparison makes sense. This one feels very much akin to the Royal Oak Jumbo, but unlike the Jumbo, this one has 120-meter water resistance, so it is a full-service sports watch. Now note the beveling along the edge of the case and the hoods of the lugs runs perfectly aligned down the individual links. Satin finished primaries, polished centers. You can see in profile there's longitudinal satin finish, and then this is something from the pre-2012 era. From 2006 to 2011, these 5711s would have been made with bracelets that feature removable links fixed in place by screws rather than pin sleeves. This is a more expensive and upscale way to make the bracelet, and I don't think I'm giving away a secret when I declare that Patek Philippe made the bracelet cheaper with the pin sleeve system from 2012 onward. Now you can see that ceramic pin snaps are actually used. These little spring-loaded pin snaps ensure that the steel cannot wear down the snap. As a result, the tolerances of the closure remain crisp over time, and specifically I'm speaking of the clamshell that locks the bracelet in place. The timepiece is entirely hand finished. It's a three-piece case, as it has been since 2006. So you have the bezel with its flanking wings, the mid-case, and then the case back. You have a screw-down crown. It is a screw-down. It is 120 meters. It is very water-resistant for something so fine and thin. It's entirely hand finished, and you can see that to good effect. One of the primary reasons the Nautilus costs so much more than the Aquanaut is because it is more extensively hand finished and the case construction is more complex, and you can really see that. You can see the rounded polygon of the bezel profile, and one of the ways that Genta surpassed himself with the Nautilus compared to the Royal Oak was that he matched the outer shape of the bezel to the inner shape of the bezel, to the shape of the sapphire, to the shape of the dial. Whereas on a Royal Oak you have that faceted outboard face of the bezel, but then the dial, the inner bezel, and the crystal are all circular. Here you can see everything is symmetrical, and form meets form from edge to edge to edge to edge. So the timepiece features a gradient dial. The original 3700 Jumbo did not have a gradient dial, but from 2006 with the 5711, we've had a dial that actually fades gently from a sort of silver blue at its center to almost black navy blue at its edge. White gold hands, white gold indices to better resist oxidation and tarnish over time. The watch does not have hacking seconds, but it does feature a quick set date function. Just quickly roll through, make sure we're not in the date change zone, and we are, and that's why we always take care before we use a quick set. So there is a quick set for the date, and those of you who know well these center second 324s, you understand that a little bit of back pressure can effectively hack the movement and hold the seconds hand where you want it. So just keep in mind you do have the ability to synchronize to a reference time. Flipping it all over, caliber 324. It's been part of the Nautilus collection for most of the 5711's run. It finished up towards the end with the 26-330, but this is actually an earlier version of the 324, and the two big differences are the use of a ferrous or metal-based hairspring. So we have that. We also have the Poinçon de Genève on the bridges. Later, from mid-2009 onward, it would be the Patek Philippe seal. So, you know, from these 2006 to mid-2009 Nautilus models, 5711, so I should be specific. You have the Poinçon de Genève on the bridge, and then after 2011, you would have had the silicone hairspring. So it is free sprung. It's a Gyromax style balance, which is adjusted in multiple positions. And the Gyromax system was first introduced in the early 1950s to allow more precise regulation of the balance and then better resistance to shock or concussion-induced timing deviation. Later versions of the 324 would be 6-position adjusted. This one's 5-position adjusted, which is the standard for high horology and chronometers, so it's not like you're giving up much. Unidirectional winder, it features a 45-hour power reserve, and it beats away at 4 hertz or 8 beats per second. It pivots, as you can see, on 29 joules, and it's nicely hand-finished. Though, to be honest, the 324 has always been a combination of manual finish and machine finishing features. So if you see the mirrored bevel on the bridges, for example, those are started mechanically and finished manually. Perfectly aligned Côte de Genève across the bridges, engine turning on the base plate in large perlage, and then a tighter spiral-shaped perlage on the center of the rotor, which includes circular Côte de Genève. You do have that mirrored chamfer on the bridges, all of which are finished by hand, even if they are started mechanically, and then the screw heads are black polished on their tops, chamfered on their circumference as well as in their slot. It is an impressively finished movement and very handsome. It also allows this watch to be thin, fine, and pleasing aesthetically, whether you're wearing it for sporting purposes and casual attire, or perhaps formally. This watch has a dual range. Very technically, I would say upscale and opulent. It's not necessarily the most technically innovative watch. It meets the standards of high horology inside and out while providing an experience that remains the exclusive domain of only the finest high horology sports watches. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the Blue Dial 5711 by night.